Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I have this Hamilton Pilot day date here on loan that I'd like to share with you. This is an aviation style watch. It's loosely modeled after the B-UHR style German pilot watches from the 1940s. And Hamilton, I think, has done a fantastic job in making a modern interpretation that is got a little bit of design creativity to it and some really excellent details. So looking at the dial, you'll notice that it is a black sunray finish dial, really nicely executed. You have large Arabic numerals on the outer portion of the dial. And if you notice, they're actually applied and they've got a very distinct linear grain texture to them, a 3D texture that helps just grab light. So instead of just being a flat polish finish, those little ridges, those micro ridges, really help bring light onto those markers and make them more legible. I find that a really cool detail. And then if you look on the inside, you've got a sub dial from 1 to 12. And if you notice, the hour hand has a cutout over it. And when it goes around that hour track, that smaller hour track, it completely encompasses those Arabic numerals. I think that's also a really fun detail. Now the handset is nice and long. The hour hand, the minute hand, the second hand, they reach to the outermost portions of this dial. And this being a 42 millimeter wide watch, that's pretty impressive. And you'll see that there's a very deep grain, a good brush to that handset that I think is kind of cool. And then the other thing that's interesting, the hour hand has loom on the inner portion. The minute hand has loom on the outer portion. And once they pass over each other, they kind of make one full sword, if you will, which is kind of interesting. It makes me think that whoever designed this watch, whoever worked on this in Hamilton, they really thought this out. They wanted to have fun features that became evident once you wore it, because I'll admit, this watch doesn't look spectacular in pictures online, but when you have it in hand in person, all those little tiny details come to play, and I think they're pretty cool. So other portions of the dial, we have a day feature up top with the entire day of the week written. I always think that's pretty nice when that feature's there. Then you have your date down there by the 6 o'clock. So it's a day date pilot style watch, highly legible. And your outer track where your minute markings are, those are all loomed. So it's just a really fun dial. I've had a lot of fun with it. My one critique is it looks a little large, and that's probably due to the fact that the polished bezel is more vertical than it is conical. So you really have the dominant form of the dial just kind of take your eye as you look at this watch. It's really pretty. But it does make the watch appear a little larger than it wears. So you have a sapphire crystal, ever so faint dome to it, if you can pick that up. And Hamilton has applied anti-reflective coating on the underside of that crystal. So it does a decent job. You can get some bluish hue in some lights, but you still get some glare. And if you're outside in harsh sunlight, you can get some pretty serious reflections on that crystal, as you can see here from this video drop-in. So the movement in this watch you can actually see through a sapphire display case back. This is the ETA 2834-2, and it's tastefully finished. It's not highly decorated, but I think it's pretty attractive for its price point. And these newer versions of the Hamilton have a different rotor with the Hamilton H cutout. And if you look at the balance wheel right there, you'll notice that there are no visible regulating pins. So this ETA is actually one of their more recent upgraded movements that they've given it the Powermatic 80 treatment. So what they've done is they've taken the beat frequency from 4 Hertz down to 3 Hertz. And they've increased the power reserve from 38 hours to 80 hours, hence the Powermatic 80 in the name. I think it's really cool that it has such a large power reserve. I like the look of the movement. I always prefer an ETA over a Solita or an STP or a Seagull. So it's nice to have it here in this Hamilton, but the downfall is when you bring down that beat frequency, the seconds hand doesn't quite have as smooth of sweep. So On a watch like this that has a large dial, it becomes more apparent as than opposed to a smaller dial or a smaller diameter watch. So it almost looks a little Seiko, a little jumpy in its sweep. And to me, that's the biggest downfall of the upgraded movement. Now let's take a look at the bracelet. You actually get quite a nice bracelet for the price. Now this watch retails, I think, something like $900 or $100 or $1,000. Don't pay retail. Buy pre-owned, buy gray market. You can find some deals on this. So reasonably, you can find this for about $550 US new, which I think is great. So check out this bracelet. You actually get a nice raised center link with a polished chamfered edge portion to that center link. So it does grab light nicely. It does have a good drape on the wrist, and you do get solid end links, and they fit nice and snug in that case. This is the clasp. It is milled, and you do have 3 different micro adjustments and a push button release. My only beef really with the bracelet is the clasp. It's very thick, as you can see, and while it's closed, it just looks a little bit bulky here. I mean, I haven't snagged it on anything, but it is lacking a certain level of refinement. So I think it's a really cool watch. I like the finish work of the case. It actually wears smaller than the 42mm dimension, probably due to the fact that it has a shorter lug-to-lug length, and the lugs kind of arc down, as you can see from the side profile. You do have a Hamilton signed crown there, and overall it's a fun watch. I constantly enjoy seeing the different details of the dial, from those long brushed hands to the sun ray finish of the dial to those really dynamically textured Arabic numerals to the loomed minute track. It's just a fun watch. I think I like it a little bit more because it was featured in the movie Interstellar. Now, normally I don't buy into any type of Hollywood tie-in, but it's kind of an integral part. This watch and another Hamilton, kind of an integral part of the story, and I just happen to just love Christopher Nolan's work. I think he's a fantastic filmmaker. So this is a cool watch. I do like it. Negative points, just really the clasp being a little bit bulky there where the clasp meets the links. The other thing that could be improved is the loom. This is C1. It just, it looks cool, but I'd prefer to have BGW9 if you want that white tone, but you want a higher quality loom compound. The last thing would be the crystal. It does have air coating on the underside, but you can see quite a bit of haze and reflection still. So I don't think it's a very high quality application. And although it's pretty to get the nice reflections on the crystal, I think it would be better, being in mind this is a pilot's watch, if it was a little bit better application and I got to see that really beautiful dial and all those details and a higher degree of clarity. But other than that, it's a real solid pilot's watch, and I think I would prefer something like this even over, like a Stova or one of the classic Fliegers that we think of when we think of an aviation style piece. This one is a sleek, modern interpretation that I just find a lot of fun to wear. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. Give me a like if you enjoyed this video. Give me a like if you enjoy this pilot day date. Give me a dislike if you're all about Pokemon. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Cheers.